Hello, and thank you for clicking on this video. Before the video starts, I need you to do two things to help this channel grow. One is subscribe down below, and the second is like this video and share it with anybody that you want to spread MMA news to, whether it's family, friends, anybody. I always appreciate your support. And now let's get to the video. Hello, everybody. My name is Tyler Russo, and this is the KO Podcast, episode number 53. In this episode, I will be reviewing UFC Fight Night Nicolau vs. Perez, and we also had BKFC Knucklemania 4 this past weekend, and this upcoming weekend, we have UFC 301 Pantoja vs. Urseg, that is in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Ring that bell. UFC Fight Night Nicolau vs. Perez was at the UFC Apex. Let's get into the fight. We had a women's flyweight bout. We had Ivana Petrovic taking on Na Lang. Ivana Petrovic gets the arm triangle choke in the third round. Moving on, we had a lightweight bout. We had Chris Padilla making his UFC debut. He was taking on James Alantop, and Chris Padilla gets the rear naked choke in the first round. Pretty big upset here. Congratulations on Chris Padilla getting the W in his UFC debut. Moving on, we had a strawweight bout. We had Caitlin Souza taking on Marnik Mann, and Caitlin Souza gets the unanimous decision victory. Moving on, we had a heavyweight bout. We had Dontel Mays taking on Caio Machado, and Mays picks up the unanimous decision victory. Moving on, we had a lightweight bout. We had Austin Hubbard taking on Michael Flack, and Austin Hubbard gets the unanimous decision victory. Moving on, we had a bantamweight bout. We had Victor Henry taking on Rainy Yanya, and Victor Henry gets the standing TKO finish on Yanya, and it started with a head kick this sequence. Henry got Yanya with a head kick and really just put it all on him until the referee had no choice but to step in. Really nice performance from Henry. Moving on, we had a welterweight bout. We had Oris Medic taking on Tim Means, and Joris Medic gets a uppercut TKO victory. Man, that was a beautiful uppercut that put Means away. Moving on, we had a featherweight bout. We had David Onama taking on Jonathan Pierce, and Onama gets the unanimous decision victory. Really impressive win for Onama. Seemed like his cardio held up more than it has in the past. Jonathan Pierce, we knew that he was going to put on the pressure and not give up. And David Onama did a pretty good job with staying with Pierce's pace. He did miss weight, so definitely some things to fix for his next upcoming fight. But other than the weight miss, really good performance from Onama. Moving on now to the main card, we had a heavyweight bout. We had Jonathan Denez taking on Austin Lane, and Denez gets the left hook TKO. Pretty brutal sequence for Austin Lane to get finished in, but Denez is a great kickboxer. He's had the pedigree professionally as a kickboxer, and he got out grappled in the first round. Austin Lane did what he had to do in the first round. He got Denez down and held him down, but Lane just got tired and couldn't keep that grappling pace, and he started to get caught. Moving on, we had a women's flyweight bout. We had Karine Silva taking on Ariane Da Silva, and Karine Silva gets the unanimous decision victory. Really good win for her. She continues to climb in this women's 125 division. Now, moving on to the main event, we had Bogdan Gustaf taking on Ryan Spann in a light heavyweight bout, and Bogdan Gustaf gets the second round TKO by ground and pound. Ryan Spann started this fight out pretty good, but Bogdan Gustaf just started to lay on the pressure, and really, really brutal ground and pound to get this victory for Gustaf. Now, moving on to the main event of this card. It was a flyweight bout. We had Alex Perez taking on Mouthis Nikolai, and Alex Perez in the second round gets a right hook walk-off KO. So impressive of a victory for Perez. You know, this is a guy that had not won a fight since 2020. There's been a lot of things that have gotten in his way, a lot of canceled bouts. It must have felt really good to get this victory, because Perez is a very talented flyweight. He's just had so many cancellations, and he lost to Figueiredo, Pantoja, and Mohamed Mokaev, and he gets this much needed victory against Nicolau. So now he is back up in the flyweight title talks. So again, congratulations on Alex Perez for getting that walk-off KO. Now let's get to BKFC. Knucklemania 4 was in Los Angeles, California, and this was a historical card, not only for BKFC, but for bare knuckle boxing in general. This was the first ever sanctioned bare knuckle boxing card in the state of California. The California State Athletic Commission has now accepted bare knuckle boxing into their governing body. So that's big for bare knuckle boxing. Now they can have, bare knuckle boxing events in the state of California. Obviously, a lot of businesses in California, so huge for the sport, huge for BKFC. So let's get into the last couple fights of this card. All right, we're going to start off with Julian Lane taking on Evgeny Kurdatov. I apologize if I butchered his name, but Julian Lane picks up the W in between rounds due to an injury, doctor stoppage. His opponent seemed to have tore his bicep. One thing about bare knuckle boxing is, man, this is brutal. A lot of injuries happen. A lot of really nasty cuts happen. It's always bloody. So if you're a fan of carnage, violence, and blood, bare knuckle boxing is the sport for you. Now, moving on, we had Alfredo Angulo, who is a former world championship boxer. He made his bare knuckle boxing debut, and he took on Jeremiah Riggs. And for about a minute and 5 seconds of this fight, Jeremiah Riggs was absolutely dominating Aguayo, and Riggs was using that clinch work that is very common in bare knuckle boxing. They let you work in the clinch. They don't break you like in boxing, so you can put your hand on your opponent's head and kind of hold them in that clinch position. That's perfectly legal in bare knuckle boxing. So people who are new to the sport or making their debut, they seem, in my eyes, I've seen a lot of their fights not go their way. They get really beat up in the clinch by crazy clinch uppercuts, and that's what was happening. Jeremiah Riggs was completely dominating this fight, and then all Alfredo Aguilar had to do was throw one punch to the chin, completely knocked Riggs out. He didn't get up at all. So one punch KO, basically. Alfredo Aguilar, really exciting fight. He took a lot of damage, but he comes out with the W. Moving on, we had a heavyweight fight. We had UFC vet Ben Rothwell taking on another UFC vet, Todd Duffy, and Ben Rockwell wins the fight in 43 seconds. Todd Duffy, I guess, said that he had a stinger in his shoulder, so he could not continue. So Ben Rothwell gets the quick TKO injury, but I mean, I don't know. Todd Duffy, man, seems like every fight something happens with him that he cannot continue. It seems to be a trend with him. I don't want to say that he doesn't want to fight, but I mean, I don't really understand what really happened. I mean, I guess, you're not going to refute if a guy says he's got a stinger in his shoulder. I don't really know what happened, but I don't know. Every time with a Todd Duffy fight, seems like something weird happens with him. Moving on to the co-main event, this was for the BKFC Heavyweight Championship. Lorenzo Hunt is the BKFC Cruiserweight and Light Heavyweight Champion. He was trying to go for 3 belts in 3 divisions, and he was taking on Mick Terrell, I believe that's how you say his name. Mick Terrell knocks down Hunt in the first round, but it wasn't really the punch that ended the fight. It was Lorenzo Hunt dislocating his arm. He dislocated his arm really brutally. When he got knocked down, he just fell on it and twisted his arm up. It was really gross to watch. So Mick Terrell defends his heavyweight championship. And now we move on to the main event. We had Mike Perry, the face of BKFC. He was taking on Thiago Alves. And Mike Perry made pretty quick work of Thiago Alves. It took him a minute to KO Alves. What can you say? Mike Perry is the king of violence. He's the king of bare knuckle. The sport was basically made for him. It's tailored to his strengths. And he is now 5-0 in BKFC. And I think he made about $600K in this fight. Way more than he would have made in the UFC. I think he's doing great business by staying in bare knuckle, and he can stay the face of bare knuckle for really as long as he wants. And he's had, a tough bare knuckle road. Really, they give him the best opponents that they can find that are free agents. And so, really, right when he got to BKFC, fought Julian Lane. That's not crazy competition. But then he fought Michael Page, won that one. Fought Luke Rockhold. Made Luke Rockhold quit, basically. And then he shattered Eddie Alvarez's orbital bone, and Alvarez's corner had to stop the fight. So, I mean, he's definitely hurting all of his opponents, and it's just a testament to how tough he is and how solid his hands are, because he is scary in bare knuckle. But this was a historic event for BKFC. Conor McGregor also becomes an owner of BKFC, so that's just gonna make this company, even more big. And Dave Feldman has really done a great job with building up this, with BKFC really building bare knuckle as a mainstream source of combat sports. So, tip of the cap to Dave Feldman for really building the sport. And now let's get to this weekend's action. UFC 301 is in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Let's get into the card. We have a lightweight belt. We got Ishmael Bonfim taking on Vince Pichel. This is a very fun matchup early on in the card. Moving on, we got another lightweight bout. We got Marcio Ruffy taking on Jamie Malarkey. This fight also should be a very fun scrap. Moving on, we got a lightweight bout. We got Joaquim Silva taking on Drakkar Klose. Another good matchup. Moving on, we got a featherweight bout. We got Gene Silva taking on William Gomez. And Silva is a very, very entertaining fighter. He's got a very fun personality about himself. He's definitely worth a watch. Moving on, we got a lightweight belt. We got Elvis Burner take on Matakeb Orbay. I believe that's how you say his name, but Orbay is a scary, scary dude. So I'm very much looking forward to watching Matakeb Orbay. Moving on, we have a strawweight belt. We got Carolina Kwaswilek. I believe that's how you say her last name. I apologize if I butchered it. She's taking on Yasmin Lucido. Moving on, we have a featherweight belt. We got Joe Sanderson Brito taking on Jack Shore. This one should be a fun 145 matchup. Now we get to the main card. We have a middleweight belt. We got Paul Craig taking on Caio Borgalho. And Borgalho is 5-0 in the UFC, looking to take that number from Craig. Up next, we have a middleweight bout. We got Michel Pereira taking on Ihor Potieria. And Michel Pereira, always an exciting fighter. He was a crazy man when he first got into the UFC, doing all these crazy flips and running around the cage. And obviously, that's entertaining for the viewer, but not a smart way to fight. He has since really harnessed his energy for much better actions to do in the course of a fight. He's really been on a pretty good streak as of late. I mean, he hasn't lost since 2020, and that was because of an illegal knee to Diego Sanchez. So that was an eternity ago. He's rattled off a bunch of wins, and he's looked pretty damn good in this run. So definitely Michel Pereira, always a exciting fight. Moving on, we have a light heavyweight belt. We get Anthony Lionheart Smith. He takes on Vitor Petrino. Vitor Petrino 11-0. Obviously 4-0 in the UFC right now. He is a rising contender. He is 26 years old, so really just entering his prime. He's going against the former title challenger, Anthony Smith, 35 years old, 37-19. So he definitely has the in-cage experience, Anthony Smith, but Vitor Petrino is a powerhouse with his punches and his kicks. Moving on to the main event of the evening. It is a bantamweight bout. We got Jonathan Martinez taking on the UFC Hall of Famer and former UFC featherweight champion Jose Aldo. Aldo makes his return to the octagon after a couple of years of retirement, I believe. He last fought Merab Dvalishvili in 2022. He lost by unanimous decision in that fight, but he is now back with the UFC. I believe this is the last fight on his UFC contract, so they really needed his star power for this card, because if I'm being honest, this main card isn't very spectacular for the money that you have to pay to watch it on pay-per-view. So they really needed Jose Aldo to get fans there in attendance live. But Jonathan Martinez, do not sleep on him. This guy has very powerful and fast leg kicks, so he's definitely going to attack Jose Aldo's legs. I'm really interested to see how their kicking games, if one kicking game is early on shown to be more superior, will Aldo use his boxing a little bit more? But if Aldo wins, that crowd is going to go absolutely crazy. That would be an insane moment for him. So my heart, I'm rooting for Aldo to win in his comeback fight. Now, let's get to the main event of this card. We have a UFC Flyweight Championship bout. We have the reigning and defending champion Alexandre Pantoja. He takes on the fast rising contender Steve Erceg. Only 3-0 in the UFC, but those 3 fights have been tremendous. Steve Erceg's last fight was a straight right to left hook combo KO of Matt Schnell, and that was a very impressive win. Alexandre Pantoja obviously defended his belt for the first time, and that was against Brandon Royval. So Pantoja has been a staple in the flyweight division, finally won the title and defended it once. He is now in his home country of Brazil. This probably means so much to him, so I am expecting the best version of Alexandre Pantoja. He is obviously a very elite flyweight. Steve Erceg, he's 3-0 in the UFC, and as I said, his fights have been really impressive, but I'm going to have to take Alexandre and Pantoja in this fight. I just feel like Pantoja is the more well-rounded guy. But I mean, Steve Erceg, he obviously has great boxing and great power, and Pantoja has gotten caught and hurt, times in his career. So obviously he's hittable. So let's see if Erceg can find his range and lay a punch on Pantoja's chin. But Pantoja, I'm going to say that he wins this fight second round submission. And that is going to do it for this episode of the KO Podcast. To stay up to date with the podcast, check out the link tree in all of my social media bios. It has everything you need. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. Stay safe, stay blessed. Bye-bye.